to drink in front of y'all today. The glass doing. So today's drink is a lion's tail, obviously. So what it is it's bourbon. Allspice dram is the main, probably sweetening component, flavor component. Add a couple of dashes of bitters and also lime juice. So this is the lion's tail. Only appropriate. Some meat to it. Very refreshing. Yeah, so went to the Lions game. Morgan came, Eric came. Richie, you were supposed to come, but that's alright. My nephew Ethan came. Had a good time. Was an awesome game to watch. And we could see in real time fantasy scores affected. But yeah, that was pretty awesome. SoFi was an awesome venue. It was an awesome shootout between two offensive powerhouses. There was like no defense. There was a little bit of defense in the beginning, but when it came down to it, it was a crazy, gutsy shootout, and it was awesome to see that in person. So one of the greatest experiences. I would definitely do it again. So I know it's late in the week, so we'll probably just try to run through the scores as fast as possible. Let me start recording the screen. Yeah, so apparently it was rivalry week. I don't know if that's an NFL thing or it's just this week. Apparently my rival is Mike L. Let's go to the score. I was able to pull out a win watching all these Lions players in person get the win. Jared Goff showed out pretty decently. 333 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. I was a little bit concerned in the beginning because there was a lot of running touchdowns. I was like, can we just dink it to the running backs? Can we dink it to Gibbs? Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's showing out as one of the best receivers in the game as well. 156 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, 8 receptions. Calvin Ridley didn't really do anything, and he was kind of a bummer. He had 0 points at the half and 3. He's been so up and down, so can't really rely on him. Breece Hall had a decent game. Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 rushing touchdowns. Sam Laporta was probably the one. Actually, I would say he's the one that was let down a little bit, but he actually rallied and had a decent score. Jameson Williams is boomer bust. I kind of accept that. But he did. His fantasy score doesn't show, but he's sprung that big time block for Montgomery. That 75-yard touchdown. That was pretty insane. Prater got me a big score. 176 field goal yards. 250 plus field goals made. That's maybe the biggest difference in this. The Detroit D started it out, like I said, looking promising. They had a pick, but then they got into the shootout, and then they just were tanking my score. For Mike had an okay game too. Watson, oh man, I think he's out for the season, so that's a tough loss for you. And it kind of hurts as Howell continues to roll. Devontae Adams had a pedestrian game. Cooper had a pedestrian game. Ramondre Stevenson did pretty good. Zach Moss, I think you dropped him, I think we are finally past that inflection point, right? Where when Taylor came back, it was Zach Moss still carrying the load. Eventually, they started to cross, and then Taylor started carrying more, and now I think Zach Moss is clear-cut RB2 in that offense, well behind Taylor. Dalton Schultz had a decent game for you. Ayuk came back and did solid, a touchdown, dominating Jacksonville. Then you got Folk and a strong game from the Baltimore D, even though they lost. That was kind of a surprise to me too. I didn't really watch too many games this weekend, mind you, because we were at one game, and so our attention was a little bit divided. Off the bench, anything notable? This late pickup I got, Mitchell, had his second consecutive really good game. We'll see if he can keep that up. And then Zeke Elliott had an okay game for you. You have a lot of guys on IR that are coming back, so maybe that'll turn it around for you, Mike. You are at the bottom of the standings, but it's going to be a claw. You're going to be able to try to claw your way back with some reinforcements with guys getting healthier. Next up, Eric versus Gary. Gary wins this. Eric loses this. Eric had no business really being in this game, with the exception of Prescott. Prescott actually made it a lot more interesting than it really was, balling out with 404 passing yards and a rushing touchdown and 4 passing touchdowns. Najee Harris, one of his better games this season, having 82 rushing yards, 16 rushing attempts. The running attack for Pittsburgh looked good this week. Everyone else, not that great. Even Taysom Hill kind of came down. For Gary, great pickup getting Sam Howell. He's able to carry you right now with that almost 30 points. You know he's leading the league in passing yards. I do not think anyone thought we would be saying that this time last year. Because Sam Howell, this is his second year. He came in last year as a rookie. I remember he was getting some buzz as a first round pick, but then he had a bad final year in college, and so he's just a late round pick. But here he is, gunslinging all around the place. Douglas had an okay game. Tank Dell, solid game. Really helping that Houston team being more than just a novelty and surprisingly formidable. Josh Jacobs, really good game. 116 rushing yards, 27 rushing attempts. So nice that he's turned that around. Jacoby Ford had a solid game. Over 100 rushing yards and a nice catch. Hunter Henry kind of down. Javonte Williams, this was the one where it was like kind of put the nail in the coffin because he was the final game he was at least one of the final players that Gary had in trying to close that gap or running away, and Javonte Williams just ran away with it. 79 rushing yards, 31 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Patterson, really good game. Could have had more if we kicked the field goal, but none more important than that last field goal where they kicked the game winner. And that was incredible to watch, like in real time. Watching them go for it on fourth instead of just kicking the field goal already so that they can milk the clock and not even give them a chance was awesome to see. And just seeing that field goal, the relief and the pure joy of all the Lions fans, myself, and even the adopted Lions fans was so awesome. It was so awesome to be there. It was incredible. Off the bench, Warren actually was your better performer, Eric. So excellent job. If you want, you can trade. I trade Dameon Pierce for him if you want. And then it was a heavy bye week for Gary, so that was actually pretty good. That he was able to pull out this win. Nothing else to mention on him over there. Darren versus James. Ooh, this was like the closest one, and this too had implications to that Lions game. James had Justin Herbert, and like we said, the way it was going at the end of the game, whoever had the ball last was going to win. At the end of the game, Chargers couldn't stop the Lions. The Lions could not stop the Chargers. Herbert and Keenan Allen connection was unstoppable. And so by virtue of going for it on fourth down, so that they can milk the clock and kick that final field goal, essentially ended all hopes for James, because James came decimal points close to catching Darren. So that really did have implications, that late afternoon game. For Darren, Baker Mayfield had a solid showing. Godwin kind of underperformed a little bit. Tyler Boyd showed out, 117 receiving yards. Like we said, Jonathan Taylor trending up, and now he's clear-cut RB1 in that backfield. Christian McCaffrey is back and healthy and giving you solid points. Christian Kirk, he seems like he's wide receiver 1 to the detriment of Calvin Ridley. Younghoe Koo had a okay game. Dallas D, solid. For James, we already talked about how amazing Justin Herbert looked. Michael Thomas, possibly, did he get hurt in that game? Yeah, he left Sunday's Week 10 loss early and wasn't able to return. So, yeah, he did get hurt. JSN, okay game. Rashad White had a strong game for him. Antonio Gibson also had a good game, 130 return yards. So I guess he ran one back. Is that what happened? He had a receiving touchdown, 42 receiving yards. Kyle Pitts, same old underwhelming passing offense in Atlanta. Deebo Samuel back and strong again. Looks like San Francisco's kind of riding the ship now that everyone's getting healthy. Tampa Bay had a really good D. Off of your guys' bench, Tyler Lockett had a good game for Darren. That probably would have been better off starting him. And then you had bye weeks for Butker and Mahomes. A lot of bye weeks also for James and Dylan and Charbonnet. Kind of like similar scores. Actually pretty decent. Those are pretty decent for bench scores. Next up, we have Richie versus Broken Record. So another tough loss for Brad. But Richie had a pretty solid game. Lamar Jackson continues to be underwhelming fantasy-wise, right? We expect a lot more running from him. But, I mean, the success kind of... The fact that they're successful without him having to, like, blow up is they don't care. They don't care about fantasy. Unfortunately, they did lose this game. CD Lamb continues his tear. He's currently a monster right now. 151 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 in the air. Deontay Johnson, again, anemic passing attack in Pittsburgh. And David Montgomery. Ugh. It was incredible to see this in person, but that 75-yard run, touchdown run, was crazy to see. And then he was like, he had a blade of grass between his foot and the out of bounds, and they could see green apparently on the replay video, and so the touchdown was good. Montgomery, so that it's going to be an incredible backfield with both Montgomery and Gibbs. This game demonstrated that they can both coexist. So Richie's happy, I'm happy. Dalton Kincaid, another late pickup that was pretty solid. Picking up Kincaid, you have now a 13.6. He's finally rounding out and matching his production is matching his draft capital, even though it's kind of negative there in Buffalo. They just fired the offensive coordinator after that tough loss to Denver. So we'll see what that means going forward for Kincaid, but you guys are going to have to monitor that. But he's been positive recently. On the flip side, not so positive for Diggs. Maybe he's getting vultured by Kincaid. At least you have them both. Dustin Hopkins from Cleveland had a strong kicking game, and the Vegas D had an okay game. Off the bench, Brian Robinson was actually your best running back, and he's on the bench. You didn't need him, but that's an incredible score. 119 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and 38 rushing yards. It's more receiver than running back. And then James Conner's back. You got Chuba Hubbard, Drake London. I think you dropped him, yeah. Cleveland D, okay. For Brad, Burrow has been solid, but that was the surprise. I've been pumping him up as the best quarterback in the league, but he got outdueled by the rookie, CJ Stroud. So it's just incredible to see stuff like that. Like, not a fan of one or the other, it's just amazing to see storylines like that, right? It's almost like King of the Hill. Burrow just came out of nowhere after the injury, and so it's like, I'm the best quarterback in the league. And here's this young upstart CJ Stroud getting that win. I mean, they both obviously played well enough to win. It just so happened that Cincinnati lost this one. Garrett Wilson had an okay game, getting nearly 100 yards. Myers, not such a great game. Bijan had a solid game. This is I think we're hopeful. I think Brad is hopeful that maybe this is the breakout game for him, and then will have more success going forward. It's pretty frustrating to own someone like Bijan, knowing that he has that talent. You know, he has that Saquon Barkley level talent. It's just it feels like the offense hasn't been utilized. The coaches haven't been utilizing him. Cook had a really good game, 100 rushing yards. Mark Andrews is back and put up an okay score. Jordan Addison, okay. Had need to work on that connection with Dobbs. McPherson had a good game, and then your Pittsburgh pretty average. Off the bench, Brock Purdy. Burrow still outplayed him, but he's good. Has his weapons back, and he's producing again. And a really strong game by the San Francisco D. Probably needed that, right? I think if you play that, that's 14 points. Does that 14-point differential get you over here? No, not quite. It gets you much closer, but I don't think you had enough to catch Richie. Jets, Brownsville Jets versus Aaron. Okay, so this was a week where the top dogs got knocked off, and in this case, Aaron knocked off Mike, who is in first place for us. He picked up Kyler Murray, kind of a sneaky pick to get in place of Jalen Hurts, who had a bye week. Heavy bye for him. He also had Devontae Smith and Tutu Atwell. DJ Moore had a mediocre game. Sutton had a really good game. He had this incredible toe tap touchdown at the end of the game that knocked off Buffalo. That was crazy to see. So we gotta talk about what it's not the same. This is not the same Denver team that we saw last year or even the beginning of this year. They've done some stuff, right? They have some quality wins. We are talking about how maybe Buffalo has been overrated, but Buffalo still has talent. And then even though Kansas City is sick, they knocked them off. You can't make excuses in the league. A win is a win. They're doing stuff, and Sutton is a big part of it. Saquon, did he get hurt? He only had 7.9. Limited by ankle, tweaked his high. He tweaked his high right ankle sprain near the end of the past Sunday's loss. Ugh, that's a heartbreaker. Deontay Foreman had a good game, helping knock off Carolina, 80 rushing yards and a touchdown. T.J. Hawkinson, balling out. Does this move into the top spot as a tight end? 134 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. So that Dobbs connection has been like quick. I don't know if they played together before. Gus Edwards had an okay game, 1 rushing touchdown. That kind of salvaged that. And then nothing much from your kicker or defense. Nothing much off the bench for Mike. I think maybe it was just you're missing 2 of your heavy hitters, so that this is kind of like an anomaly. This is your heavy bye week probably. For Aaron, another big game, so he's kind of set up at least from midseason for a decent run. This is his second consecutive week where he has a really high score. You might be the highest score of the week as well. CJ Stroud, like we just said, balling, 356 passing yards, a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown, helping as a rookie this Houston team to look. And then the way to appreciate it is just look at the other rookies. No other rookie has been doing this. This is insane. And then it's not even like he's come into a system where it was already in place. They have a brand new coach. Everything. They revamped everything, and they've already turned it around so quick. This is a little worrisome in the long term because I think sometimes these act like fireworks. They go explode really fast and then they fizzle. But I mean, enjoy it while it's rolling, and if they can sustain it, that's an incredible job by Houston. Chris Olave had a good game. 94 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. I think I seen something where he has a better connection with Teddy Bridgewater. Is he here? Whoever Jameis Winston. Like he has a better connection with him than any of the other quarterbacks, apparently. Mike Evans had a really good game, helping them destroy Tennessee. 143 receiving yards. Look at these older receivers kicking everybody's butt. Austin Eckler, he's another one who decent score. Seeing him in person, you can see the talent, but the Lions kind of kept him in check. I think it was all what's his name, the receiver, Keenan Allen. Tony Pollard, that's not, you hate to see that. He's the main guy, and he just hasn't had that year that he's had in the past. George Kittle, a really big game from him. 116 receiving yards. Michael Pittman had a solid game too. 8 catches, 884 receiving yards. An okay game from Tucker, and an okay game from Chicago. Off the bench, nothing really much to mention here. You do have Justin Fields coming back and healthy. He's going to play the Lions team. The Lions just let Justin Herbert tear them apart. So, I don't know. But CJ Stroud has been playing good. You have a nice problem to have there. Last matchup, Morgan versus Jeremy. Here's another one. The second upset. Jeremy has been, I think, second in our league, and you got knocked off by Morgan. You picked up Josh Dobbs. That turned out to be a sneaky good pickup for you. I think you've been missing a quarterback for a while. This is his second consecutive week performing, and if he's performing this well, imagine how well he'll play once he knows all his teammates' names and their tendencies. 268 passing yards and a rushing touchdown, so really solid. Adam Thielen, kind of a come-down game. I guess expect a little bit more from him, but Chicago had their number. Jamar Chase had a pretty solid game, 124 receiving yards and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara, kind of a little bit better, closer to what we're projected of him. He had 42 rushing yards, 7 catches. No touchdown, but he did have a 2-point conversion. Etienne, a letdown game for him. I think we expect a lot more from him, so it's amazing. It's great that you were able to win in spite of him having a down game this week. San Francisco just took up all that pent-up energy and anger from losing 3 in a row. All that energy and anger from losing 3 in a row and then having to sit a bye week and stew, and so they just unleashed on Jacksonville. So poor Etienne. Njoku, solid game. Kenneth Walker back and balling again. 64 receiving yards, 63 rushing yards. What a split, huh? A receiving touchdown. He is one of the few bell cow backs. There's not a lot who are not sharing a backfield as a committee split. Aubrey and your New York Jets D. Nothing really much to say about them. Love put up a little bit of points. They still lost to Pittsburgh. And then not much else from your team. Enough, though, to get a win on Jeremy, who had a super heavy bye week. As Miami was done and Philly is done. Look at all these heavy hitters. Miami, Tyreek Hill gone. Mostert gone. I don't know if he was healthy yet. But at least he may be coming back, right? Because after the bye and after all that time off, maybe they'll ramp him up. DeAndre Swift on a bye. Pacheco on a bye. So you had to play Josh Allen, who, I don't know. The weight of the world is on the shoulders guy now, and there's a lot of pressure on them because I think what we're seeing with Buffalo is the window of their championship, the probabilities of that championship window closing. And it's sad to see. And back to Keenan Allen. Got nothing but proper respect for that guy, because without him, this would have been a blowout by my Lions. But it made the game so much more fun. I would have enjoyed a blowout. I would have hated a blowout the other way. Like if I was at that Baltimore game, I would have been heartbroken. If it's a sturdy slugfest and we win, all right, that's cool. If it's a blowout and the Lions are just playing with their food and just destroying them, that's fun too. But a competitive shootout. It reminded me of back at the UH run and shoot days with remember Rolovich and Timmy Chang. It was just like that. Just boom, boom, boom. So much fun to watch, and I'm really happy to be there. What a great experience. You have a lot of underwhelming performances from Hopkins, from Jamal Williams, Ty J. Spears, Evan Ingram, and your Atlanta D, and that kind of pulls you, drags you down. Even though you're able to break 100, I know Metcalf was a help, and a decent game from Dicker. Just not enough for you to beat Morgan. So that was the weekly recap. So that puts us, I guess, just over the halfway point. We'll see who goes down at the end. I think in terms of the standings, we do have like the live standings now. Mike is still up, then Jeremy. A couple of 6 and 4 teams with Darren and Morgan. These guys are all kind of in pole position. And then you have this whole slew of 5 and 5 players: Richie, Aaron, Gary, James, Eric. I'm just below them, and then the outside looking in is well, just outside is Mike L and Brad. We'll see what happens. We're past the halfway point of the NFL's regular season, but we are actually much closer to playoffs. So it's really going to be decided by what happens with all these 5 and 5 teams, and see if these guys can kind of maintain their pole position. Anyways, we can stop it right there. So it was really fun to get involved and see live action football. Back to the grind and back to the normal, but still having fun playing fantasy footballs. So we'll quit it there. Talk to you later.